All right, guys, it's Dr. Sam from SmileLine, and I am excited today to address a topic that so many people are going to be interested in. It is the over-denture trap. Why you might need to be aware of the over-denture, what it can and can't do for you, the value gap that is between the over-denture and the fixed denture, and the difference between managing your over-denture teeth forever and having to deal with the maintenance versus kind of forgetting that you lost your teeth. Let's dive in. All right, guys, so today we're looking at diving into the topic of really the most popular option that I can tell patients kind of lean towards. It's the snap-on denture, the over-denture. It's called an over-denture because it is a denture that goes over the implants and ultimately snaps onto them. You can see inside the denture, there are attachments that actually have little gaskets in them that allow the denture to be retained down to the ridge by the gaskets. This is a really, really popular choice for patients because patients really have three options when they're looking at removing their teeth. They have the denture, which is completely removable. You're gluing it in. Everyone kind of knows that. It's been around forever and ever. They have the snap-on denture, and then they have the fixed option. So the snap-on denture, for most of us, feels like that middle of the road. Most people, I think, they don't consider themselves high maintenance. They don't consider themselves really needy. And so when you're presented with these three options, you've got a low price point, a middle price point, and a high price point. And I think that it's just human nature to evolve to the middle. I'm going to be pretty happy with that. And so I completely sympathize with people and understand why the overdenture is such a popular choice. I think it just psychologically makes sense for a lot of us. The problem is that functionally and long-term maintenance-wise, that's where we run into trouble. Okay, so let me explain. So when you have a fixed denture versus a snap-on denture, okay, a snap-on denture is still a full contour denture. They have flanges, they cover the whole palate, they are completely identical. This is a regular denture, this is a snap-on denture. One's an upper, one's a lower. They're identical. The only difference is these metal attachments that are embedded into the interior of the denture. So realize when you're buying a snap-on that you are buying a denture, but there's kind of a trailer hitch type of attachment to it. The problem is trailer hitches lock on and they won't let go. But snap-on dentures don't lock on. It's kind of like putting your trailer hitch together, but not actually locking it. And then you pull your UTV on the back of your trailer, and what happens? It pops off the ball, runs into your tailgate, and you got a big dent in your brand new truck tailgate. So that is really something that a lot of patients get down the road with their snap-on denture 6 months, a year, 2 years, and then the trailer starts popping off the hitch, and they're coming into the office going, what the heck? I thought I had implants that were going to last me forever. And this is something we deal with routinely. When I first started, our go-to was snap-on dentures, and we did hundreds of these. And I have to say that a lot of people were satisfied with them. A lot of people were not. And so we're diving in today to the why they weren't versus the fixed, okay? Now, when we get into this fixed denture, you have something that has no flanges. There's no saddle to the ridge. A regular denture saddles over the ridge. If my hand is the ridge, then it saddles over the ridge. A fixed denture sits against the ridge. Okay, so this would be the shape of the fixed denture. This would be the ridge of your jawbone and your gums. And so what you do is you clean underneath here in this gap, all right? So the first thing we have that's the major difference is that we have full access to our palate, and we have no flanges on the lower to trap food. One of the most common complaints I hear from snap-on denture wearers is, I'm constantly getting food under my denture. And that's true. It doesn't have any way to keep that from happening. It's going to happen. So after you're done eating a meal with a Snap-on, you traditionally have to take the denture out, rinse your mouth out, rinse the denture out, then put it back in. Now, it's not to say that with a fix that you still won't get food under it as well. It's just that you're not compressing that food underneath the denture. The fixed is rigidly held up off the ridge. Okay, so like a bridge grows across a river that's suspended, that bridge is held up in the air off of the water. Okay. Similarly, if you had a bridge that was floating on the water but cabled down with anchors to the bank of the river, that bridge isn't going to go away, but it is going to move around. Okay. In this case, the Snap-on is actually a little different than that floating bridge because it actually snaps loose and can literally come off, which would be kind of like the bridge floating away, which would be pretty terrible. The good thing about a fixed denture versus a Snap-on denture is the fact that you just don't have to worry about that thing actually fully coming dislodged, okay? There's several components to an overdenture. There's a male component that sticks up out of the gum that literally is like the hitch coming off your reese hitch on your vehicle for that trailer. Then there's a female component that's embedded in the denture. And inside of that female component is a liner. It's usually nylon. If in the case of mini implants, it's like a rubber O-ring gasket. So it can be made of different materials, but that material is wearable, okay? So when you first get a Snap-on denture, it's nice and tight. Patients really like it. Fits great. They're just super happy to not have something floating around. Then as they get into their daily, weekly, monthly routine, and some time passes, those liners wear out and the teeth start to pop out. Many, many patients can pop their denture loose just by talking or pushing it up with their tongue. And, that's something that it still helped, from a lateral stability standpoint, it still helps hold the denture in place. But from a vertical standpoint, the denture starts floating around, which really defeats the purpose. The whole point is for the denture to be held in place rigidly. Not something you have to worry about with the fixed denture. Everything is screwed down. So you don't have a way for this to actually come loose. This you're cleaning under with a water pick and little brushes that go underneath the prosthetic every day. This you're taking off morning and night, brushing the implants, brushing the denture, and then snapping it back on, okay? The other big thing with a fixed prosthetic versus an overdenture is just the feeling of taste. So when we can have access to our full palate, we also have access to our taste buds. This is a pretty common thing that most people, I think, understand. The other big one with the fixed is that we don't touch that gag reflex. Okay, so when you have a full contour upper denture and the back of this is going to press into your palate, that's where your vagus nerve lives. Okay, that's the nerve that tells your brain that you need to gag. It's, when you put your finger in your mouth to make yourself try to vomit for whatever reason, that's what you're tripping. You're tripping that nerve trigger that says, hey, you need to gag, and that happens. The denture is sitting against that area all the time. Some people adapt to this and can tolerate it eventually. Some people can't. There's no way to predict who those people are. So from a dentist standpoint, we just feel scared to death that we're offering you a treatment option that you're going to have this terrible problem with forever. The long-term maintenance, okay? The wearable components of the overdenture system are just what we talked about, that male, that female, and that liner. All three of those components, in my experience, start to wear out after about 3 to 5 years. Okay, so we get some good run out of it initially. The liners have to be changed every 6 months to maybe a year for some people. For some people, it's even more often than that, which can be really frustrating. But the actual physical components that are embedded into the denture also have to be replaced every 3 or 4 years. To redo the components, we as dentists have to buy new components. We have to reline your denture, and then we have to take an impression to have those embedded back into the denture in the lab. It's an expensive procedure. And so every 3 or 4 years when you have an overdenture, you're looking at spending some significant dollars again on sort of revamping that prosthetic. Eventually, you kind of get to where you've paid for a fixed anyway. All right. Now, here's the real kicker. If you're buying a 2-implant lower denture that's snapping on, most people are pretty happy with that. And it's a significantly lower price that I think makes sense for a lot of people. But for a lot of people, they're like, oh, well, I don't want to do that fixed, but could I get 4 implants on my lower? And yeah, that'll make it tighter. That'll make it rock less. But the problem with that is it gets so close to the cost of fixed that the value gap gets really small. And the ability to move forward with life and be a confident human being with this versus this is worth 10 or 15% more money. I have never had anyone upgrade from a Snap-on wearing something like this and go to this and not be very, very satisfied with it. So in our practice, we try to build the workflow to where our SmileLine hybrid really competes with the upper overdenture. The lower 2-implant Snap-on, I'll give to people. It's a fair option for someone who's looking for a really budget-constrained situation that, they're just looking for something better than a denture, but looking to move forward. Most people are pretty happy with that. When you go to the upper Snap-on, the value gap is so small when you go to 4 implants, versus going to a fixed, that it really just doesn't make sense when you start to add in the satisfaction. I would say that on the upper overdenture, it is a 50-50 shot of whether or not, as a dentist, you can really make a patient happy with a Snap-on. Whereas with a fixed denture, our confidence that we can make you happy and reach your expectation probably goes up into the low to mid 90s. There's still a group of people with fixed prosthetics that are the FP3 style where we have gums and teeth on it. We can get into that more in a later conversation. It's a different topic, but ultimately there's a group of people that aren't happy with this either. It's just a lot smaller of a group, guys. I mean, a lot smaller. And as a clinical provider, we're not here to make you guys unhappy. We're here to try to provide solutions that really work for you and that, you can look back on and go, man, I'm so glad I did that. That changed my life. And I hope that helps. There's a lot of things to consider when you're considering these processes. I recently wrote a book called Dental Crossroads. If you're interested in really diving deep into these topics, learning about, when you should consider going to full arch prosthetics, what the different options are, what the different price points are, why the price points may vary, how to finance it, all these different situations. I've even got a food nutrition post-surgical sheet in there that really gives you menus and recipes and everything for what you can eat post-surgically. If you're interested in diving deep into that stuff, make a comment below and we'll send you a link of the rough draft of the book. It's actually being published right now. But make a comment below and we'll send you a link to that. It's an unbiased reflection on what I've experienced patients going through for the last 13 years while I'm doing these full arch prosthetics. And I think it's going to be a great, great resource for people all across the country to help make these decisions. Appreciate you guys watching. We'll catch you next time.